What's going on, guys? Rob Childs here with a fighter story, and today's guest is Dennis Wirth. Dennis Wirth is clearly from the Boston area. You're going to find that out very soon with his accent. His story is a particular story that I never knew I was actually going to get into. It's about parental alienation and child access to his own kid. The story takes a couple twists and turns, but it eventually leads up to he is starring in a film that is going to be on Amazon Prime. And he also has a successful comedy career. You can check that out on YouTube, as well as a successful podcast. So please stay tuned, listen in, and follow Dennis Wirth. Thanks.
All right, green light means go. Sweet. All right, Dennis Wirth, how are we doing today?
I am living the dream. Thank you for having me on the podcast. I appreciate it.
No, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it. We had met actually through a Facebook group. Kind of just a general question, trying to see if anybody wanted to be a guest on the podcast, and you popped up with a pretty interesting story about a parental alienation. So kind of going down that rabbit hole, I briefly scratched the surface on exactly what it is, what it entails, and kind of going through the long court processes that everybody seems to have to go through. So I was kind of hoping you could tell my listeners a little bit about yourself and kind of get into a little bit of the backstory, kind of leading up to this film that you're actually shooting for Amazon Prime.
All right. Years ago, I was going through a bitter custody battle with my ex, a bitter divorce. And, as tough as it is on you as a parent, it's twice as tough on the child. I saw how it was mentally affecting my child. Wasn't a damn thing I could do about it. And it was tearing me apart. Okay. Because there's nothing more precious in life than your children. And when you see them suffering, that's a very painful thing. So as a parent, you don't want to see your children suffer. And when there's nothing you can do about it, you kind of feel helpless. So, we went through the bitter custody battle. Me and his mother, we just didn't see eye to eye. She said right, I say right, she says left, I say up, she says down. And it gets to the point, where the child's so caught in the middle that, as a child, I was a parent, okay, as an adult, I couldn't even handle the situation anymore. We were at each other's throats so much. As a child, he had no choice whatsoever. A child's mind can't handle that. It got to the point, I always tried to take the high road. I said, I always knew it wasn't his fight, and I wasn't going to make him, dislike his mother just because I did, because it wasn't his fight, it was our fight.
Yeah.
And they sent us to a class when we broke up called Dealing with Divorce. That's the first thing they teach you. It's not your child's fight, it's your fight. Don't put him in the middle. Well, I always said he's going to see I took the high road. I did that because his mother was yak in his ear. You dad this, you dad this. And I said, no, I'm not going to play a game. He's going to see I took the high road. Well, he didn't end up seeing I took the high road. He ended up believing every word of garbage she yacked in his ear. He got to the point, I got home one day, opened up the door from work. His room was wiped out. There was nothing in there. He left. And I haven't heard from him for 8 years. A victim of parental alienation. She had talked so much garbage about me, didn't want to have nothing to do with me. Parental alienation, it rubs off on anybody you're connected to, okay? So once his mind starts not liking you, his grandmother, my mother, okay, 80-year-old woman, never did nothing but spoil him since the day he was born, will not say a word to her. My entire side of the family he won't talk to. I mean, we've had no contact with him whatsoever for over 8 years. So, as painful as it is for me, I mean, it's twice as painful me seeing my mother who had nothing to do with nothing. Why does she have to suffer? Why does my family have to suffer? And unfortunately, the courts are so geared up to protect the mother, okay, that, that they just look at fathers as a paycheck, okay, because I went into court, hey, I love my son, I'll do the right thing, I'll be a good dad, I'll be there for him, go to work and send us some money. You're looked at more like a paycheck than you are a father. So they're not going to back you up. They back up the mother 100%, right, wrong, or otherwise. So it got to the point, you can either, you start having, you're getting so depressed, you're seeing your son suffering, you don't know what to do. And it gets to the point you start having crazy thoughts. And I learned, you can either let something drive you crazy or you can become active and do something about it. So I chose to become active and do something about it. When I was a young kid, I loved watching stand-up comedy. I was always just fascinated when Comedy Central had the marathons. I'd sit there all weekend, just watch one after another all weekend long. I loved it. always had the itch to try it. I never knew how to get started. And like, you don't go put in a job application, become a stand-up comedian. How do you become a comic? I had no idea. So one night I checked my mail and there was a pamphlet from the local community college that had a thing about night courses. One of them was Introduction to Stand-Up Comedy. I said, really? I was like, well, I always wanted to try it. I said, I'll take the course. I'll look back years from now. I tried stand-up comedy. I never dreamed it would amount to nothing. Well, I took the class, and in the class they teach you, the real life stuff. It's so much funnier than anything you could make up. If something happened to you funny in real life, that's twice as funny as any routine you can make up. So they said, stick to the real life stuff. What was the real life stuff for me? I was going through a bitter divorce at the time. So for the first routine I ever came up with in comedy, I created a character called the child support superhero. And it was kind of a comic way, comedic way of me dealing with my situation. So since I did that, I created a Facebook page about the child support superhero, and the character's just kind of taken on a life of its own without even me trying. It's got over 15,000 followers. Every time I post from the page, I hit 10,000 people, 30,000 people, 50,000, 100,000 people. I had one post go viral. That was where I got most of the likes on it. Hit 3.5 million people, which I don't even know how many people on the planet, but I mean, to hit a post like that from Facebook was crazy. But that's when I got so many followers, and so I have access to getting my message out to a lot of people. So the routine kind of took on a life of its own. From there, any good comedian, what do? They start out as stand-up comedy, then their dream is they'd make a movie. Okay, well, I'm not this big Eddie Murphy type comic. I'm a local comic. I've always, be nice to hit the big time. If I don't, I'm fine with what I'm doing. I'm having a lot of fun. So I figured, I want to just try acting. If you're going to take the next step in comedy, putting out a good comedic movie would be it. So I made a connection with a young director who, this was way back when I was just starting out in comedy, and he was just starting out directing. And he put together a film called The Cartoon Man. It was a trilogy. I think I was in the second one. I was a character they talked about. And I did it. I had some fun doing it, which I found out acting is a lot tougher than stand-up comedy, man. You're on your feet. I'll take one, take two, take three. You're on your feet all day. It's a lot of work, but when you finally see the movie, it's finally worth it. So I went on my career. I did some big things in stand-up comedy. I worked with, Jimmy Walker, Dynamite from Good Times, Jackie the Joke Man from the Howard Stern Show, Lenny Clark, Steve Sweeney, some Boston comedy legends, Tom Cotter from America's Got Talent. I flew up to Alaska. I opened up for Carl LeBove, who was Sam Kinnison's opening act back in the 80s. I had posted this guy on my wall as a kid, and I'm flying to Alaska to open for him. I performed down in New York at the Gotham and Dangerfields. As I said, Alaska. I went out to LA. I performed at the world famous Comedy Store. I went to Vegas. I performed out there. So, I mean, I was doing very good. And as I said, I always had that dream of making a movie in the back of my head. So I had enough success in comedy and enough people following the page that I decided I called up Adam, who's gone on. He's done bigger stuff since he started directing. He's actually he's won some film festivals in LA, won some film festivals in New England. His movies are being shown on Amazon Prime. So I explained to him about the character that I had, the child support superhero, and how well it was doing in comedy and on Facebook reaching people. And, I've had kids, when I went through the stuff with the courts, okay, this was before the internet, okay? There was no internet when I went to court. So I'm being seen so unfairly, and I'm looking around like, this is America. This isn't supposed to happen to people. I'm supposed to be treated fairly. I had nobody to turn to. I didn't have the internet to go to and turn to other dads. Well, now that I've created this page, I got people young men going through the system now saying, wow, I didn't know a page like this existed. Thank you. I didn't think I had anybody to turn to. And I'm there to tell them, no, you're far from the first one to feel the wrath of family court here. You're not alone. Parental alienation is a worldwide thing. I believe the statistics are 12 people a week commit suicide worldwide due to child access issues, which, someone watching your podcast, that's not a proven theory, but okay, say it's not 12, but is 10 okay? Is 5 okay? Is 1 okay? Regardless of what the statistic is, how many people got to commit suicide each week because of child access issues before we realize as a people that this system, it's not working, okay? It's not working at all. So I spoke to Adam. I said, what do you say we make a movie about the character, the child support superhero? So we've been doing it for about a year now. We've been filming. We've hit some snags with the movie, but hopefully by the end of the summer, it's done. Then we're going to enter in some film festivals, and then we're going to put it on Amazon Prime and see how it does there. So that's the plan.
Nice. Yeah, that was a lot.
You got the whole story.
Yeah, the whole thing. I got no questions. We're done. Yeah, no, it's crazy how like one thing can kind of take off and like pivot your entire life to where you didn't even really expect it to go. Like you in comedy, now you're opening for Sam Kinison, and like, I
Oh no,
especially.
Sam Kinison passed away. This is opening act, Carl LeBeau over there.
Oh
I
yeah,
loved
yeah,
opening
yeah,
with Sam, but he passed away. But
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
next
Sorry
best
about
thing
that.
was his opening act, Carl. Right?
Yeah, yeah, I know. Like just being in like the podcasting world, and I mean, like just in general, I feel like everybody's listening to podcasts, and Joe Rogan's kind of like at the top of that list. You named off like his entire roster of like comedy stores or
Yeah,
comedy.
he's the Godfather. Yeah, Joe Rogan. Well, I hang out in a town called Leominster, and if you drive through it, there's a pizza shop on every corner. If you
Okay.
drove through it, you'd be like, "Why is there so many pizza shops?" And I say, "Because that's what people are buying." So you say, "Why is there so many podcasts?" Because that's what people are listening to. That's why there's so many podcasts.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy though, because I know like it's getting to the point to where you can just have conversations like this about subjects that you have no idea about at all, but you can still find some sort of relativity between people.
Right.
That's the thing that I really like about everything. Going back to the actual parental alienation, like when everything was going on, going through like the court systems and everything like that. I can't speak on behalf of any. I don't have kids. To speak on something is not something I'm going to do. I have been through the court system because of my own issues. And I know how frustrating it can be. I can't imagine having to do that with a child on the line. Kids, is there any way that you can actually like kind of verbalize some of the things that happened during that court case to make it feel like it was very lopsided?
Yeah, when I first went in there, just talking, to my lawyer, here's a guy paying thousands of dollars to represent me, and he's pretty much telling me, hey, you're not really going to get a fair shake here. Like, well, why not? This is America, isn't it? Why, well, the system's set up to protect the mother. That's the way it is. And
So going into it, you felt like you didn't even have a shot, like from the start.
yeah, it was kind of like that. It's like, do this, or the courts ain't gonna, give you a fair shake. I'm like, well, kind of seems like they're gonna give me a fair shake no matter what I do, So it was, when we broke up, it was just you're on the defense to begin with, and she gets the thing that brought us to court. Now, when we first broke up, okay, we came up to an agreement with ourselves. Okay, this is when you'll get them. This is when I'll get them. We didn't go to court to begin with. Okay, so well, she feels the need to feel important in life. She's going to have everything her way. She calls me up one day and says, well, I'm going to change the deal. I think you should be in the same bed every night. So you have Sundays, but I want to have him Sundays now. You drop him off at my house. I'm like, well, if he spends every night at my house, is that fair to you? So how is it fair to me if he spends every night? You should be in the same bed every night, I think. She's like, well, I'm going to be there to pick him up Sunday. I'm like, well, that's my day. You're not going to get him. Okay. So because she can't get everything her way, the cops show up at my door. She brings the cops down there. Who cares how this is going to affect their child? Okay. I'm going to show up at daddy's house with the cops to rip you away from him. And I'm wondering what's going through my son's head when he sees a cop there, and I got to hand it. So the cop knocks on my door. He's like, do you have any paperwork saying you can see your child? I'm like, no, I don't. I'm like, does she have any paperwork saying she can see our child? She don't need any. Really? I need paperwork to say I need to see our child, but she don't need any. So I explained to the cop what was going on. We had come up to an agreement, and she had decided to change it out of the blue. I said no, so she shows up at my house with a cop. He's like, well, she's the mother. She has the rights. You got to hand them over. You need to go to court and get this settled. So right there, now I got to hand my son over to his mother. And next day, I got to go on to court, chalk up a court case. Meantime, I don't get to see my child until I go to court.
And how old is your son at this time?
Oh, he was like 1 year old. We broke up when he was 1.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, this is an early age. This is mentally affecting him, right? So I show up to court, and then she tries to throw it at me. She's like, oh, he hasn't been in touch with me for 2 weeks to try to see his child. How much does she care about him? I'm like, you show up at my house with the cops to rip him away from me, and I'm going to call you up to, and beg you to see my own kid? You just ripped away from me with the cops? Are you kidding me? So, we went to court, and, this was a temporary order they gave us because we weren't prepared. I had to just go to see my son, whatever. They give us a temporary order, okay? Now, this is during the week when I see my kid, okay? Thanksgiving falls, is coming up, okay? Yeah. Now, this isn't on my day. This is on her day. I call her up. So I didn't call her up. I contacted my lawyer. I was like, Thanksgiving's coming up. It's not on my day. It's a holiday. Can you contact her, see when I can see him? He comes back. She said you can pick him up at 7 at night and drop him off at 9. Who the hell celebrates Thanksgiving from 7 to 9 p.m.? Like, she ain't thinking about what's best for our child. It's, hey, she's going to get them the whole day, and I
So you
get the
got 2
scraps at the
hours.
end, Yeah, 2 hours, 7 to 9 p.m. on Thanksgiving. That's when I'm going to celebrate Thanksgiving. Like, my family gets together for Thanksgiving at 7 o'clock at night to have Thanksgiving dinner. I mean, this is what she says I can have, okay? But it's not in the court order. What am I going to do, right? So I end up getting screwed on that one. Back to court again. We got to settle the holidays and everything, get it in writing, because heaven forbid we act like adults. We got to get everything in writing, So we do that for a while. Again, when he got older, I tried to modify the order because he wanted to spend more time with me. He was a boy, being with his dad. So I tried to modify the order. And when I went in to do that, I didn't really get what I was like. I'm looking for equal custody. Again, I didn't get it. So when I got out of there, they had given her so much of the time that it was kind of interfering with her work schedule. So again, she's like, okay, it's not in the court order. If you want to take them a little extra time, you can take them a little extra time. I was like, okay. So he had been in this schedule for over a year, okay, with the extra time that she I got to say, allowed gave me, because heaven forbid, I'm entitled to be an equal part of my own child's life. So a year goes by, I don't even remember what it was. We get into an argument about something else, okay? Right after this argument, the day she drops him off at my house, she's got the court order, and underlined, she's like, drop him off here, drop him off, like, back to the original court order. Who cares that over a year he's been in a different schedule? How's it going to mess up his head being taken out of that schedule? No, because she's got a hair across her ass. We're going back to the original schedule. Back to court again. I got to go to court. Hey, our child's been in this schedule for over a year. Now she's trying to break it just because it wasn't in the court order, because we're in another argument over who knows what, because she can't get everything her way, spoiled little brat. So it's just a constant battle with these courts. I mean, you want to just to see your own kid. I got to go to court just to see my own child. And, he's got something. I think it was over Boy Scouts or something. There was some $12 fee or something she had to pay. And it was like, I had him for the first couple of years he was in Boy Scouts. I paid for it. Then the meeting switched to her night of the week. She had to pay for it. It's, he owes me half of this $12 or whatever it was. It was just one stupid argument over another. It was just childish.
Wait. So you've had legitimate arguments about custody over your kid over $6.
Yeah, over $6, whatever it was at the time. It wasn't. Yeah, I mean, if you get acting like an adult, but it was never. She never put her. How's this going to affect our son if I do that? It's no. I'm pissed off. This is what I want. Boom. This is what I'm. She never thought of the aftermath of what she was doing, how it was going to affect her son. That was the problem with the whole thing. Finally, later on in life, I finally got to the point where he got old enough. I got split custody. I had him minute for minute. He was at my house half the time. Minute for minute, he was at her. I finally got it in writing. All right, I don't have to go beg this woman to see my kid anymore now.
And how old is he then at this point?
Oh gosh, maybe it's so long ago. 15, 16, maybe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was older at the time, or maybe he might have been, I don't know.
It's still a significant
12,
amount of time.
13,
yeah.
But I mean, it had been a long time. So now I got a minute for minute the same time she does in writing. Okay, get this. Okay, he's half the time at my house, half the time at her house. I still have to pay her child support, even though I got a minute for minute. It costs the same amount of money to live in my house as hers, but I still have to pay her child support, even though he's spending half the time at my house. Like, well, if it costs just as much to live in my house as hers, but that's how the courts look at you as a father. You're not looked at as a father. You're looked at as a paycheck. Okay. If you get into that, I've done the work and investigated because I'm obviously interested, but the federal government, okay, matches the state dollar for dollar. Every penny they take in child support payments, the federal government dollar for dollar gives them that much money at the end of the year. So the states have an incentive to keep the child support money high, because at the end of the year, the federal government's going to double how much ever they're taking in from the dads. Okay?
All right, so I'm a moron, first of all. Right? Yeah, first of all, I'm a moron. I have no idea what a lot of people are talking about, but it sounds like you go to work, you get your paycheck, you take part of that paycheck, you send it to her. Even though you're having the kid half the time, she has half the time. That part still doesn't make sense to me. It's not.
Yeah, it never will either. They don't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make any fucking sense.
Because you looked at it as a paycheck. They're not giving up the money. The state's not giving up the money. They don't care what's in the best interest of your child. The money comes first and your child second.
Yeah. So whatever X amount of dollars, you give that to the courts. and this is
They take it out of your paycheck. It's
okay,
automatic.
yeah.
Before
And
you get
so,
your check, it's sent to her. The state's taking it.
so let's say $100. I know it's more than that. I've heard horror stories, but let's say you're giving the court $100. She might get 90 of that or whatever. You know, the court takes that chunk. What in like so the federal government giving the state money based on you giving money for your child, where does that money get allocated to? And why does that even come into play?
Well, that goes into like the school systems and whatever things for children. Okay, so I mean the state's giving that money because to give towards the family courts to keep them running towards all the money it takes to go through this system.
That is a shitty incentive.
That's how judges keep their if there's no cases, judges and lawyers don't get paid. Okay, there is no family court. They don't get to go to work every day and make some money off of our children. So it's a very dirty, crooked system if you do the work like I have and look into it. But you can almost say, hey, it's a dirty world. I can accept that. But when it's affecting our children, there's nothing more precious than our children. If you want to mess up my life's one thing, you start messing up our kids' life. Now that's a real problem.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Especially like your kid started this whole journey at 1 year old. He didn't have a choice.
And well, that's what I said. His head was no way. I couldn't handle it as an adult. There was no way his head as a kid was going to handle it. So,
yeah.
And we were best friends. I mean, we were best friends growing up. We did everything together. I mean, Disney, this, that, the White Man. We did, and I mean, we were best friends. All of a sudden, not only your son, but your best friend, all of a sudden, just not talk to you one day out of the blue. Over 8 years, I haven't spoken to him. He just recently, after 8 years, finally contacted my mother, and they went out for lunch. So thank God for her. I said if she ever passed away, didn't get to see her grandkid again, it would have been a tragedy. But they did go to lunch. They're somewhat staying in touch. Still don't want nothing to do with me, but it's step one, I guess. I can only hope. Someday I hope he gets old enough to realize there's two sides to every story. All he's ever had yacked in his ear was one. So
yeah,
whether he ever reaches that point or not, I don't know.
It's weird. So I going into this conversation, I didn't do too much research because I wanted to actually hear your story. Like but for me it's different to actually hear this because I grew up without a father, like pretty much at all. But I was only told like minimal things about him, and so I went searching for this person, and I found him, and it wasn't what I expected.
Looking for the truth, you were, right?
Yeah. And so it like those memories are still attached as a child, of like what that person is or whatever. And so like to try to go find that truth sometimes is an extremely scary thing. Especially like I can only imagine for your kid, starting off at 1 and, still going through everything. And then 8 years, like it's easy to be cynical and hear the stories about like, oh, she's crazy, she's brainwashing them, this and that. But like, I've been that kid, like I found the truth out, and like the stories were pretty accurate. But like I've been that kid. I know what it's like to have to listen to stories and to not actually go find out the truth. So maybe in like some way of his own, like reaching out to your mother is like a bridge, to get to you.
That's what I'm hoping. And it was probably tough on you, right? I mean, for years you probably wanted to know what's going on, but to finally have the courage to actually go seek out your dad and find out, that was a big step for you. It had to be a huge step.
It was crazy. Yeah, I was like 16 years old. I didn't know what I was doing. I just kind of hopped in my truck and took off and showed up at the front door. There was
nothing you could have did as a child, right? I mean, you had to wait till you get older to finally confront it, right?
Yeah, exactly. But it's not only just that. It's, I mean, you being a man, you understand the importance of having a man in your life. There's
I don't want to say man. I mean, a mother's just as important. I don't want to put, you need both parents in your life. I don't want to just say a man. I mean,
100%. You definitely do. But like having that influence of a male gives you that courage to take those steps. So it's one of those give and takes that really sucks.
I got a half brother, which I didn't know him that well, which he was on my father's side from his first marriage, and his mother took him and took off with him, and my dad never knew him till he was about 16. And when he finally made contact, at 16, we finally knew him. And he said, I heard for years what a bad guy my dad was, and when I finally went to meet him, I found out he wasn't that bad of a guy that I was led to believe,
And
I think that kind of relates to my son, where he's heard one side of a story. If he got my side, he probably wouldn't feel half the way he does. But I don't get the opportunity to tell him my side of the story because he won't speak to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, you do though. Like, I mean, you're doing this. You're actively, like, you can Google your name and you pop up. Like, you type it in.
Yeah,
You know,
I've done a lot spreading awareness, but that can bite you too. I mean, I did see recently. I had I could hop on to every now and then see his Facebook account and see what he was saying. He recently blocked it. I think he caught on to I was doing that, so I can't see anymore. But well, one time he put something about it don't matter how nice somebody was to you. If you abuse somebody else, you're an abuser. So I think his mother's got to put in my head, because I do all this work fighting for father's rights, that I'm bashing her, that I'm abuser towards her by speaking about this stuff.
yeah.
So I think he's got in his head I'm abusing his mother by talking about this, rather than I'm trying to spread awareness to solve the problem, so no other parent and child have to go a decade without speaking to each other because of parental alienation. But
Yeah.
I don't think he sees it that way. I think he sees it as, oh, I tell a comedy routine, about his mother, that's bashing his mother. So I think he looks at me as a basher rather than somebody spreading awareness.
Yeah, I mean, like, perception is reality, and that's a shitty thing of life, especially like going through, like, maturing. Like, your perception changes, and don't worry about the camera. It does that, it'll come back on. Canon's a piece of shit. But yeah, like, going through, like, that perception of, like, you hearing something and then maturing at the same time, it's hard to take those mental pivots of exploring other options to see what it is. And yeah, it's weird. People handle things differently. I mean, like, you started a comedy career out of this whole thing. Like, how exactly do you even go from not only like a divorce, but then it sounds like, easily 10 plus years of, fighting just to be able to see your kid, and then the kid getting taken away.
That's a good question.
And some of the best comedians, at least that I like, Sam Kinison, being one of them easily. You got Jesus Christ, I can't even name them all, especially like the older guys. And then you got Belushi. Yeah, like Belushi, Chris Farley. I mean, he's one of the best stand-up comedians of all time. Robin Williams. Every great comedian comes from pain.
Pain. Oh yeah, it's talked about in the comedy circle. Yeah, that's how it's an escape from your pain. You got to laugh about your pain. If you didn't laugh about it, you'd be drove crazy. I'd probably be the next dad who walked into McDonald's with a shotgun and went nuts or something. I mean,
oh yeah,
you either learn to laugh about it or it drives you crazy. I chose to laugh about it.
Yeah. How do you make that transition though? Because I've been in like super dark spots, and I feel like every man kind of knows like those dark spots to where like you feel alone. And
yeah, well, when you just said it, you feel alone. When you're in a dark spot, you feel alone and you want to explode. Here's what kept me going, okay? Now, when I started doing this, I do a comedy show, okay? And I mean, literally, not everyone, but about 90% of the comedy shows I do, after I got done with the show was over. I'd be in the parking lot. 90% of the time, somebody be chasing me down in the parking lot. Dude, wait up. I want to tell you my story. Because they heard me telling jokes about family law and divorce and dealing with the situation. All of a sudden, they wanted to tell me this story. Some of these stories I was hearing was blowing my mind. How unfairly, when you think you got it bad, there's always somebody who's got it worse. Just what these people were dealing with family law. But I mean, all of a sudden, without even trying, I became the guy you talk to. Everybody's being treated so unfairly by family court. Nobody knows who to talk to. All of a sudden, without even trying, I became the guy to talk to. And that's kind of what pulled me out of the dark spot, was knowing I wasn't alone. Knowing somebody asked me, I mean, I was on the page, I got the child support superhero. It's like, I haven't talked to my son in 5 years. I've thought about taking my own life. I don't know what I'm going to do. How do I get through this? I said, you get through it by knowing you're not alone. You're not the only one this is happening to. If you were the only one, it'd drive you crazy. But when this is a worldwide problem, okay, it's nothing you did. It's a worldwide problem. It's a problem with the system, not with you and how you are as a parent. But like I said, just the people reaching out to me on the page. I've had young kids write in, man, thank you for doing this page. I had no idea anything like this even existed. I thought I was alone. You're not alone. You're far from alone. So that's what keeps me going, is just, the people that are, I know I'm helping out and are going through the same thing I am. That's how I keep going.
Yeah. It's that being alone thing sucks. I know. A lot of people that listen to this podcast have already kind of heard the story, but like, I started this whole thing in like every social media thing pretty much, due to like, I have cancer right now, and then I had a clinical trial drug crash my nervous system, and now I have fibromyalgia. And so there was a point to where I couldn't walk. Like I had to fly out to like the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota and like barely being able to move around. So it's like all of these things kind of coming on, and that dark spot in life comes in, and
Feel like you're alone, right?
it's not one thing either. It comes in real slow and then it just takes over, like it takes over everything that you are kind of.
Right.
But through that pain and that feeling alone, I now have like talked to you, and you're clearly from Boston. You can tell by your accent.
Boston accent.
Yeah.
Big town, baby. Wicked, wicked funny up here.
Yeah, you got a pocket car. But yeah, but I mean, like, it is that dark spot that.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry to hear you have that, and I wish you luck with your fight. But I mean, when you went to these hospitals, did you meet other people that were going through the same thing you did there? Or?
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah. That probably helped you, right? Knowing you weren't alone,
exactly.
That there were other people with the same thing you had.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is it's almost like once you start putting out content, or like if you make like any informational pamphlets or whatever it is you do, you almost become an authority on the subject. Right. And you got people from all walks of life coming up to you wanting any information at all of maybe trying to help their fight out a little bit. The crazy thing is after I posted that question about like anybody wanting to be a guest, it was maybe 2-3 hours after I'd gotten your message, I got another message from a woman about parental alienation, and it was a lot for me to handle. And she's wanting to get in connection with everybody, so I'm gonna.
Yeah, everybody says you must have had a lot of dads chasing you down in the parking lot, and I said there was just as many women chasing me down to tell me their story too. It's not just dads going through this; it's certainly women too. Yeah.
Yeah. That was, especially after like looking into like kind of what it was. Unfortunately I understand, or I don't understand, but I can see that women are favored in the court system. And then to have and then to have a woman go through the same issue, that just, it threw me off. I mean, like, it seems like two people make a kid, two people should have control over like what happens to the kid, especially if you want to be a part of that child's life. There's so many people, like that grow up like me without the dad because he didn't want to be. You, on the other hand, want to be a part of this child's life, and you're not able to.
Not able to, even if I wanted to. Yeah, it's a very. I've said the government sold out our children for profit. Like, I mean, these family courts are making so much profit, how much money they can extort out of dads. I mean, and the reason the dad, because men make more money in life than women usually, so that's what's going to keep the budget the highest, is trying to get the most in. The problem with the system is I'd send over this child support money, and even though she's getting the money, you got no say on how she spends it. So she can be going out drinking using this money, buying herself clothes using this money. And if you see your kid going without, I'm sending over this money, and my kid's coming to me, hey, I ain't got this for school, I ain't got that for school, I ain't got this for school. It's like, well, that's kind of what the money I'm sending. I don't tell him this, but I'm thinking that's kind of money I'm sending you money. That's what it should be. So now I got to buy him this stuff on top of paying her to buy it, or I got to see him go without, which I don't want to see my son go without. So it's a really bad system, when you got to send somebody money and have no say. They don't have to show any proof they're spending it on the child, I mean, so in some cases you see a child go without, and the money's not being used for what it's supposed to be used for, and the courts don't care. They just keep sending the money.
Damn. Yeah, I wish I could. I don't wish. Like, I'm glad that I can't relate to this story. It doesn't sound like anything that I'd ever want to be a part of, or anybody that I know to be a part of, obviously. But you to take that into comedy, and now you're doing a movie about this. What exactly is like the movie? Is it more like the documentary thing, or are you doing it on your comedic character?
Yeah, I'm doing it on the comedic character, the child support superhero, where I'm trying to do it because I found, when you start complaining about family law, people don't want to listen to it. Okay, they'll listen for a little bit, and then this guy's complaining, I don't want to hear it. You talk to your friends, they're your friends, they'll listen for a little while. After a while, it's just Dennis complaining again. I figured out through comedy, if I can get people to laugh about a subject, now all of a sudden you want to listen to what I want to say. You want to hear my message. So if I do it comedically, that's to keep people interested, because if you can make people laugh, that's a good feeling. It's something they want to do. So I'm doing the movie in a way where I keep you laughing throughout the movie, but while you're laughing, I'm also educating you on the subject, okay, about family law and how it operates. So as long as I can keep people laughing, they'll keep listening to my message, I found out. So it starts out how the child support became the child support superhero. Starts out with my fight in court, fighting with the government, fighting with the judges in the court system, and how you had, like I said, the dark spot in your life, and
Yeah.
you got to choose a path. Either go down the dark path or you choose to fight. I chose to fight. How I came back, and how the character progressed into being a superhero. So that's what the movie's about.
Yeah, that's amazing. Do you know when you plan to release it?
We had hoped by the end of this summer. Unfortunately, some of the locations we were going to shoot at, the city came in and shut them down. We had to cancel those. We had one actor who filmed about half of his scenes. He got into a bad car accident, totaled his car, cracked a rib, broke something in his chest. I mean, it could have been
Man.
worse. Luckily, yeah, he's going to heal up, but we got to wait for him to heal up to finish shooting his scenes. Just this past weekend, we're going to shoot some scenes. We had a tropical storm up here in Boston, which turned into be nothing more than a rainstorm, but these weather guys like to play it up. So we had to reschedule that because everybody was worried about driving in the rainstorm. So we're about 85% done the movie, but this last 15% just ain't cooperating getting it done. But so we're hopefully by the end of the summer, early winter, we're hoping to get it done. Once we get that done, then like I said, we're going to enter it in some film festivals, see how it does there. We're gonna have a big opening night at the movie theater, and then eventually it'll hit Amazon Prime, and that's where I'm hoping the whole world can tune in and watch it.
Yeah, that's amazing. I like how you're actually taking a negative thing and although you can't really fix what has happened to you, you can educate people so it doesn't happen as easily to them. Do you see a time that this doesn't happen to people? I mean, like you've been in it, you know
And
this more than anybody that I've ever met. You know?
yeah, the problem, I mean, realistically, it's never going to be solved in our lifetimes. But I mean, I've looked at how have other problems become solved. Okay, slavery was once a thing in this country. Okay, it's ridiculous to think slavery even existed nowadays. Okay, but it existed. How was that overcome? By spreading awareness. Okay, there was a time in this country where women couldn't vote. Okay, looking back at that now, that's insane. Of course, women should be able to vote. How did they solve that problem? Women's lib. All of a sudden, it became a movement. So that's what this generation has to do. We have to spread awareness. We have to start a movement so that future generations can solve the problem. So what I'm doing is hopefully setting the stage for future generations to solve this problem because what I said, we recently had the Black Lives Matter thing, and whether you agree with it or whether you don't agree with it, everybody was talking about it. That's a movement. Okay, when we got everybody talking about the problem of family law and that our children are suffering and that the courts are making profits, rather than worrying about what's in our children's best interest, when everybody's talking about it, that's when it's going to get solved. Okay, when awareness hits the peak like it did with the Black Lives Matter thing.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's amazing. That takes a lot of balls to actually be the person to start something. I feel like a lot of people say, it would be awesome if somebody did insert whatever, as
Yeah.
they're holding, a 4K camera to go do these things. But yeah, it's taking that step to actually go forward and do what you say you're going to do. That's where a lot of people miss that connection. So that's amazing that you started to do that. Um,
Yeah, when I made the page, my girlfriend said, "Wow, I can't believe you did that." I say, "Someone's got to lead the way. Why not me?" I mean, any great cause started out with an average person like me and you with a vision.
yeah,
I certainly
exactly.
have a vision. So
Yeah, so
hopefully
going
I can
through like this divorce and like obviously with like the Prince alienation attached to the divorce, has this affected like your relationships moving forward? Like you like with your girlfriend or is there like a lot
Oh
of
yeah,
trust issues there that you've been able to actually get over, or is that just like shit still simmering?
yeah. It can affect you. I mean, early on when you looked at a paycheck when I had them, that's all I did. I literally, that was my entire life. I worked and I had to work so many extra hours to pay her the child support and still have enough money to survive myself. Every second I wasn't at work, I was spending with my child. So that was it. It was work and spend time with my child. You don't even get time for a relationship, even if you wanted to, okay? Because, all you are is a paycheck because you need so much money to afford to pay my household and half of hers. So I had to give up my own life but even when I did start dating, I mean, yeah, it was, I mean, there were definitely, how's this woman going to try to destroy my life? You know, it's like, I mean, well, when you've been through something like that, you know, you don't want to go through it again. So you kind of keeping your distance. So, you know, I eventually did get over it, but yeah, it did take years to even start to trust anybody again. Once you've been through something like that, like I said, you know, and I don't want to. Obviously, you know, I take the point of view from what I've been through. Okay, now if you had my ex on here, I'm sure she'd tell you a whole different story where, you know, hey, I had this bill, that bill, that bill, and you know, there's two sides to every story. You hear on my side. If you heard her side, I'm sure she'd have a different story where, you know, I got daycare, I got after school expenses, I got, but you know what? It was between us. Okay. That was where the mistake was putting her son in the middle. Okay. It should have stayed between us. And I always understood that, but she never did. This is what I think. This is what my son has to think too. So that's where the mistake is made when you start putting the kids in the middle of adult arguments.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, it's pretty fucked. just to put it
yeah,
back, it's fucked.
I mean, I got to that point where you feel that anger. This is so fucked. I'm so angry, but then you get past the anger and you come out on the other side of it. It's like, all right, that was fucked. There ain't much I can do about it. You know, it happened to me. What can I do about it? And spreading awareness, you know, that's about all left. I got. Hopefully, you know, the guy behind me never has to live the hell I did because I'm spreading awareness. So
yeah,
that's how you come out on the other side and try to go forward in a positive way rather than a negative way. You know.
Yeah. No, I like it. All right, Dennis. Yeah, no, I really like your message. I like what you're trying to do. You're actually trying to like facilitate some change around here. Seems like nobody's really wanting to do that. I know you're a busy man, so I'm gonna let you go here in a minute. If you could just kind of let everybody know where they can follow you. If there's anybody that's going through this problem, you know, people are probably hitting you up, you know, daily, or especially with
I get a lot of people asking me for legal advice. Hey, I'm going through this with my kid. What do I do? I'm not a lawyer. I'm just a dad fighting a fight like you. But I'd say the first place to go to is Facebook. I got the page, The Child Support Superhero. Like I said, it's got 15,000 followers. Check that out first. I do have my own website through comedy where I have the stuff linked to it. www.denniswirth. It's WIRTH. So dennisworth.webs.com. You can go there. You can check out my comedy. I have my own podcast called Funny Like Clown Podcast. It's about comedy. But as you mentioned, you checked out where I had the 3 people on. I just started recently doing a podcast from the page, the Child Support Superhero, where you know, I did about 10 of them where I said, you know, if you're going through a court battle, you don't want to talk about it because that can be used against you in court. Okay. So I started out just me giving advice to people without using names. But then when people saw those, they were contacting me. Hey, I'd like to tell you, there were more people willing to talk about it than I thought. So I started doing these Zoom meetings where there were 3 or 4 or 5 of us on. And again, I mean, some of these stories, I had one lady on the last one, she started crying, and we're like, no, you know, we're going through the same thing. We're here for you, you know. So, I mean, you know, if you listen to these stories, just the unfairness these people are experiencing, I mean, forget my story. Like I said, I'm not alone. There's 1,000 stories, and the more people that hear these stories, the more things that are going to happen. So go to Facebook, go to my website. You can check them out on YouTube, the Child Support Superhero. You can watch some of these meetings. You can watch some of my comedy that I do about the character. And, you know, once you watch my comedy routines, you can kind of get a gist of how this movie's going to come out when it's finally done. So those are the big places you can go to check out and hear my message.
All right. No, I really appreciate you coming on, man. I will let you get out of here and get on your way. But again, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it. And I'm going to link everything down below on YouTube and then Spotify, Google, everywhere that it goes out. So hopefully people can connect with you and see your podcast, see your comedy. And I look forward to seeing the movie when it comes out.
The world needs a new superhero, it's called, and hopefully sometime during the winter, this winter of 2021, you can catch it on Amazon Prime. Nice. World needs a new superhero. Here first. All right. Thank you again for having me on.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.